It's Kiss right here on your classic metal show from the Animalize release. It is Burn, Bitch, Burn.
Yeah, man.
You like that, right, Kiss? Chris?
Well, yeah, am I Kiss Chris now?
Kiss Chris.
That's me.
Right.
Yeah, I like that tune. That's a good tune. That's actually probably my favorite Kiss record, honestly.
Animalize, really?
Because it's heavier.
Right.
I just like that it's got that real heavy guitar. Mark St. John, that dude could fucking wail.
Sure.
Wail himself right in the ground, but he can wail.
He did. He's one of the dearly departed now.
Yeah, he is.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, a guy who knows a little bit about Kiss, who's actually had tactile confirmation of Kiss's existence.
Okay.
A guy who wrote a book called We Are the Road Crew. A guy by the name of Ken Barr is on the phone with us. Welcome to the Classic Metal Show there, Ken.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Ken, are you a fan of the Classic Metal Show?
You know, I have to be honest, I'm new to it, and I've been listening to you guys for the past hour, and I'm digging it, so I think you guys have a new fan here. And I'm totally on board with you guys. House of Blues, you got to have a chair. You got to have some real estate to just not have to deal.
Sure. Well, Ken, I've been kind of excited about speaking with you this week, being that you're a guy who's worked behind the scenes, so you know a lot of dirty little secrets of the rock stars. Chris and I have had our share of friendships with musicians. There's a lot of stories that he and I wish we could tell on the show, but we can't just due to the respect that we have for our friends. But I know that I'm sure it must have been a difficult task for you to write this book without letting too much out of the bag, without implicating too many people, or maybe telling stories that maybe you shouldn't tell. So tell us a little bit about your, I'm going to use the term self-censoring when it came to writing this book.
You know, when I started, I had certain parameters I wanted to work with. You know, I had a real positive experience on the road, and it was important to me to shine a light on that. And I didn't want, I've read so many, hey, we were doing blow, there were these chicks and blah, blah, and, it gets to be redundant. And I think you gloss over so many of the other aspects of the road when you do that, and that's why I just kind of, set the parameters for, if it's going to embarrass me, if it's something I wouldn't want told, I'm not going to tell it about anybody else. And basically, any story in the book is stuff that I did, shit that I got into, because I just felt that was necessary. I obviously describe what happens on tour to some degree, but, any dirt that's in there is all just on me, because I just wanted to show respect. I had the best time working for Kiss, working for Alice Cooper. Anybody that you guys have seen that I've worked for, I was lucky. I had one great artist after another, so I was just showing them the respect they showed me.
Sure. Well, Ken, before we actually start breaking down into any specific artists, I want to ask a very general question. I know what I've seen backstage. And, I mean, I've been in this I've been on doing radio and whatnot and for almost 20 years at this point. So I've been backstage and seen a lot of crazy shit, and I'm sure you've seen way more than I have. My question is, when you see these guys and they're talking about, we were doing blow off of this chick's ass or whatever, the crazy stories that you see, in real life, how many of those stories should really read, instead of it making it sound like it's this crazy hot stripper, that it's this 5 that just happened to be hanging around in the backstage area?
Yeah, usually they're not all that hot if you're snorting coke off their ass. It's usually a woman you need to get a little high off of just to kind of be in the same room with her. So that's really how those stories should mostly read. Right,
and that's kind of what the example I'll tell one story, and it's not really like it's a secret, but I was on a tour bus once with Limp Bizkit and Korn early on when Limp Bizkit was first breaking, and they were doing the thing where they throw the lunch meat at the chicks. And these chicks were so nasty. And at one point, Durst is like, "Do you want to bang one of these chicks?" And I was like, "Not really, dude."
Yeah.
Absolutely
yeah,
none. One, they're not hot. Two, now they're covered with all that meat slime. No.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Definitely
That's
not.
definitely a stop you don't want to make.
Exactly, man. Well, dude, let's get into this a little bit. Let's you've obviously worked with a variety of acts, and the one thing that, and I don't know, I don't know all the players that you have worked with that you talk about in the book, but I've met a few of them, and it seems like of the ones that I know, the thing that is almost a common thread is that the people that you were working with, whether it's Alice or whether it's Gene Simmons or Kiss or whatever, is that these guys are what most people consider to be the higher end of the professionalism standard. Not necessarily that they don't party or they don't, do this or that, but when it comes to their performance and the show that they put on and everything, they're very much higher end guys. And
Absolutely.
What I think that says about you is that you, as a member of their road crews, were one of those higher end guys. So, how did you raise yourself from anybody can tune a guitar, anybody can plug a mic in, but something you were doing put you into an elite status, with more elite guys that focus a lot more with their shows. What was that?
Ever since I started out, I always treated the smallest bar. I'm from Long Island, New York. The smallest bar, it didn't matter. I used to always tell myself, I treat every gig like it's Madison Square Garden. I love the industry. I wanted to get somewhere, and I knew it was going to take a certain amount of discipline and hard work. And I took that to every gig. It didn't matter if it was in front of, 3 people sitting at the bar or one of the bigger clubs. It didn't matter. And when I started getting the opportunities, you realize that the people that are snorting blow off a stripper's ass, those guys don't last in the business. They have some great stories, way better than my book, but they also have very brief careers typically. And I knew that I wanted to continue moving up. And once I got my first tour, things just started to happen quickly. I banged it out in the clubs for 10 years, working a crappy day job, making 10, 20, 50 bucks a night, working for bands, doing whatever. But I continued. And once things happened, it moved up into arenas pretty quickly. And you hear so many stories about guys that make the transition from bars to smaller tours to arenas, but then they're on their way back down and they're back in the clubs 2 years later because they were, not up to the task. So I did whatever I could, if I could. I did backline, guitars, drums, it didn't matter what tour. And I made it a point to get with the vendors, the manufacturers, to know the instruments, to be able to do anything they needed. And I was determined I was not going to be one of those guys working his way back down the spiral that he'd already worked his way up. So it was just, hard work and appreciating the opportunities I had. I mean, you're there, it's a life, but on a gig day is work. And, you got to have your eye on the ball, your head in the game, just like, anybody else that's going to work. You got to be there and bring your A game.
Sure. Well, a lot of people don't realize that, being a roadie, working for a band is actually a job. I mean, the whole sex, drugs, rock and roll, thought process for the average fan out there. Everybody thinks, I shouldn't say everybody, but I would say a good majority of people who don't know what it is to be a performer or work for a performer, they think that it's party all the time. Woo! Break into this,
absolutely.
Come into this town, party, party, party. But there's a certain, like you said, dedication, a certain amount of intelligence, work ethic that goes into people who are successful. And since we, came out of Kiss, I want to get into Kiss a little bit because I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Kiss is a very, regardless of what you think about them as a fan, or even if you're not a fan, you think that, these old dudes are just ridiculous and who cares and they're past their prime and so on and so forth. Kiss, from what I understand, as far as being somewhat involved in the business myself, is a very, very strict, tight-run organization. Is that statement true?
That is absolutely true. The guys know what's going on. Gene knows everything. And I don't know if this is still done, but when my years working for KISS, Gene actually signed every single check. He was completely aware of where every penny was going. So yeah, it's very strict. You can't have that level of show. You know, you may not like the music. You may think that they're too old. I don't agree with that. They're putting on a show right now, this tour, that you don't see anywhere else. You know, and you can't have that much going on without your own, you know, without the dedication and commitment of like your own army. Everybody's got to know their job and be on it. And absolutely, KISS is a tightly run ship. There's no room for error on a show like that.
Right. What era of KISS did you work with?
The Revenge era. I came in with Eric Singer as his drum tech. I did the Revenge tour. I did the club tour first. Then we did the Revenge tour. Then there was a little time off. I did other things. And then in '95, we went to Australia, Japan, and then I did the convention tour, the MTV Unplugged. I worked for Eric Singer, Peter Criss, and Gene Simmons on that one. That pulled triple duty. And then I built the sets for the reunion tour, and after those sets were built in the first show in Irvine, I went off and went back to doing what I do, Guitar Tech and Alice Cooper tour.
Sure. Now I want to.
So it's 92 to 96. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was 92 to 96. That was
okay.
It.
Well, I want to ask you a question. I've heard this story from a couple of people. I don't know the truth. Maybe you've heard the story, and tell me what you know about it if you know anything at all. I had heard, and being that you're a road guy, I had heard that there was a road tech for KISS that I guess KISS was going to Japan or something. And this road tech, I don't know who it was, basically told KISS he couldn't go. He had prior commitments, couldn't make the tour, whatever. So he said he was leaving the tour. Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm just going to tell you what I heard because I don't have anything to validate this one way or the other. I had heard that he was summoned by KISS to come to Japan. So he basically went to Japan. He got there. He was called in by Gene, and Gene said, "You're fired. You don't leave KISS. We tell you when to leave." Is there any truth to that, or have you heard that story?
I will say this. I have not heard that story, but also that goes against everything I know about Gene Simmons. Gene is a professional. And he's not going to fly, in my opinion, because like I said, I have not heard that story. Gene is a professional, and we're all grown-ups. You know, if you can't make a tour, you can't make a tour. He's not going to fly someone to Japan and absorb that cost to fire somebody. That does not sound like Gene at all. Gene, you know, people say a lot of things about him. End of the day, he's a professional. You work hard. You do good at your job. I actually got compliments from Gene, and I wasn't even his tech yet. Which is how I ended up becoming his bass tech on the Unplugged tour. That just does not sound characteristic of Gene to me at all.
Sure. Well, Ken, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I mean, you've worked certainly the Cooper tour has a lot of stuff, you know, just things going on stage, and undoubtedly KISS always has a lot of stuff going on stage. When you
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
When you see things going on, you know, the more modern, the newer stage setups, the newer stuff that's going on out there, do you look at it all as a fan, or do you always see it as, wow, that would be difficult? Like, I'll give you an example. The band that I personally think would be a nightmare to be a tech for would be Metallica, because Metallica for the last 10 years have used that wide open stage where there's nothing for you to be behind, you know, to fix things or tune guitars or whatever, and everything just has to work, and they run all over with the mics and whatnot. It seems like that would be a very tough gig for a roadie. Do you agree with that?
No, I was saying that on the Metallica, the guys are under the stage, and that's getting more popular to just have a clean stage and your crew underneath. It just is easier.
Okay. But it is, that's actually easier than say a traditional backstage area, or, you know, amps on the stage where you could just be behind the amps tuning a guitar or whatever.
You know, you're out, you're not seen. You know, I was the older school, and you know, like on Stone Temple Pilots, I had a big guitar wing. You know, so all through the show, you saw the roadie tuning guitars. You saw me walking out on stage. When you've got that nice clean stage and all the racks down below, the stage is cleaner. A guitar gets handed up through the floor, and it's just a cleaner look. I think for the people buying, paying for the tickets, it's a cleaner, more professional looking show than the way we used to do it.
Sure. Now, Ken, when especially, and again, I'm sticking with mostly Cooper and Kiss because these are the two biggest ones that I saw that you worked with. When you're,
Can't we talk about Air Supply for a while?
Oh, we actually can. Yeah.
Okay.
But real quick with that, with the big stage shows, and this is really where I'm trying to go with this. With the big stage shows, I have to imagine that if everybody's not in sync on every single show, that the show goes bad. I know you told some stories about. There's one story in the book about Kiss. They came in a bad mood, and it immediately, filtered through to the crew as well, and then it turned out to be a bad show. My question is, how is it, I guess, that you guys who are basically running on no sleep and, there's just not a lot of sleep, there's not a lot of rest. Guys are not always responsible with taking their rest when they should. How many times in the course of a show do things fall apart because this guy or that guy just doesn't maximize his output as within his piece of the stage show? Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. It's not as frequent as you might think because you get to a level of working with Kiss. You're good at what you do, and you've figured out how to grab that hour catnap here or that 15 minutes there. You learn how to survive and be on your game. Because with Kiss too, if you're not on your game, there's pyro, there's lasers, there's all kinds of stuff, and you have to be aware. So like a lot of times, like the riggers, they're the first ones in. They'll do their job and they'll bust ass. But when they're done, they'll shower, they'll go out to the bus and get as much sleep as they can. And pretty much everybody does that. Sound guys get everything flown, get everything laid out. If they've got an hour, they'll go out to the bus and take an hour nap. You have to do it. Depending on the distance to the next gig, that's how much your sleep is, and you almost hope for a longer drive because you'll get a decent amount of sleep, even though it means a later load in. So you just get every bit of sleep you can, and you do have to eat right. It's not like the old days of a couple of pizzas for the road crew. It's you got to eat proper food and and take care of yourself. Otherwise, you just can't work at that level. And Kiss, they tend to do a lot of shows per week, as many as they can physically do. Like on the Revenge tour, we would do an average of 4 or 5 in a row, have maybe a day off. Sometimes it was a travel day on the bus all day, and that's how the whole tour went. A lot of shows, maximizing what the return on your investment. But I like that because you kind of get into a routine and a groove, and the month flies by before you even realize it because you've done so many shows. And honestly, I got in the business because I love the music and I love the shows. So the more per week, the happier I was.
Sure.
So
let's.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, again, more to your original question. Like I said, at that level, everybody's got their A game. They're all really good at what they do. So there's really, nothing's going to break. I mean, things break, but it's not because of negligence or anything like that. It's just shit happens.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the pay scale here. I'm not specifically looking for a number, but compared to a normal 9-to-5 job, what would you consider the pay scale to be? Is it worth it? What they pay you? Give me an average. Give me an average way that they pay you. Do they pay you by the week, by the hour, by the gig? How is it usually paid out?
It's negotiated it's always by the week, and you negotiate before the tour starts. Working for Kiss, I was making 3 times what I would have made at a regular day job. Plus, that was my paycheck. Plus, on top of that, you've got your per diem, which is like $200-300 a week in cash. And then meals are provided, so you're not even spending your per diem, especially when you're doing a lot of shows a week. You're not even spending your per diem. My per diem, the cash they gave me was about the equivalent of what my day job paid me.
Sure.
So my paycheck went home. I didn't even have to see it. and then I still come home, with a couple grand in per diem. You have to pay people because you're buying their time 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether you're doing a show or you're sitting on the bus heading west or you're at some hotel. Regardless, you're buying the people's time. So, people aren't going to leave their loved ones and leave home if you're not, taking care of them. And the old adage, pay peanuts, you get monkeys, holds true. So, you want to pay somebody cheap because he'll work for cheap. Well, you're getting what you pay for. I've heard of tours where the production hired a bunch of kids out of school from the various schools that, you can learn the lights and sound and all. And the tours physically came home because they couldn't get the load-ins and load-outs and keep the schedule. They just physically couldn't do it because they had a bunch of kids. So, you got to pay for experienced people like anything, You don't want the cheapest lawyer that you find because, you're going to lose your shirt in your divorce. You want a good lawyer. You're going to pay a few bucks more. And road guys are the same thing.
Well, I'm going to gather from that as a road guy, you would not recommend you be a married road guy.
No, it is real hard on a marriage. I was married when I was on the road. I am currently not married. It's hard. It's if you can find someone that can put up with that, it's great. And even with the trust factor, if your wife is 100% understands that you are not gonna snort coke off a stripper's ass, even just the being away is hard. I used to be away 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a clip, and that's hard. That's hard on the person at home. So, yeah, being married, if you find that right person, God bless, and, all the luck in the world, but it's real hard on a marriage. It's hard on any relationship. It really is.
Sure.
If you have kids, you're never going to see them.
Right. Well, speaking of that, how many times have you been propositioned with sexual favors if you'd let them back to meet the band?
Quite a lot, especially on tours like Kiss because, they're Kiss. I wasn't married, but we were close to it, and B, there's a certain standard of professionalism that you don't, that you try to adhere to. Although Paul Stanley's guitar tech, he used to have a fishing pole, and he'd be stage left by where his guitar area was, and he'd just hold it out, and he'd dangle it near whoever he wanted, and he'd look at her, and she'd shake her head yes, and she knew, and she'd get the pass, and then he'd get taken care of, and she'd meet the band. So him and his fishing pole were a standard.
Well,
hold on real quick, Neely. Did the band get mad at the roadies for doing that kind of stuff?
If it was not an everyday thing, they had a meet and greet, and back when I was working for them, this is before the packages you bought where spend this much, meet the band. So it was more the old style. The band would swing into catering and say hello, sign a few autographs. If you're not doing it too much, or if you're not bringing back people that are trouble, they're pretty cool about it. I mean, they understand. Single guys have needs, and it's not like they weren't doing it. So. Like I said, it's like anything. Don't push it. Just, if it becomes a big thing and it's an everyday thing, then, you kind of want to not take advantage too much. But, it is done. And like I said, guys get lonely on the road. It happens.
Sure.
We all know that.
Well, since you made that statement, Ken, are you guilty of accepting sexual favors for favors?
No, and I'll tell you what. Firstly, like I said, I was either married or close to being married. But secondly, I have to say, I've never been a fan of high traffic areas. If a girl's had 3 guys in her mouth in the past half hour, I really just find no attraction to that. So, I prefer the road less traveled myself. So that was just not my thing. I met women on the road, and I dated women that I'd met on the road, but I definitely stayed away from the high traffic areas and the toll roads. Those are just places I don't need to be.
Roads. That might be the greatest term ever. The toll roads.
Well, you guys can have that. Go ahead, reuse it.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, Ken, let's talk about some air supply, because I've got to imagine that is the antithesis of the sexcapades that would go on Kiss, right?
Well, it's funny. Those guys, first off, were rock stars. And I'll tell you an Air Supply story if we have time. When I was in high school, I had an old Dodge Coronet, and it had an AM radio only. And this is, late 70s. And this is back when AM radio, they'd have a rotation of like 5 songs. And one of them was Air Supply's song, All Out of Love. Ugh. So if I was parked by the beach with my girlfriend one night trying to get lucky, typically that song would play 3 or 4 times in a row. So I didn't even realize it till I went on tour with them. And after a couple of shows, I said, I got to admit, guys, you guys play All Out of Love. I just get a hard on just out of habit from back in the day. It just takes me back to the old high school days. But those guys were total rock stars, and we played small buildings here in the States, and we went to China. We played stadiums. Those guys, it was like the Beatles. It was crazy. And as far as, hanging with them, they'd been touring for, long enough where they had a whole cast of regulars that knew them, and we would go to the hotel after a gig because we'd travel the next morning. The hotel bar would be filled. I was like 24, 25. The hotel bar was filled with women in their early 40s that just loved Air Supply and wanted to meet the young road crew guy. So, Air Supply was a lot of fun. Nice. Those guys, they were nice. We partied like Motley Crue. We had a good time with them. You'd be surprised.
Nice. So the only impression I think anybody actually has of them, because I'll be honest, I don't think most people could pick them out if they were in your living room. But the only impression most people have of Air Supply is those god-awful time commercials that they did for the you could buy the 70s collections. And let's be honest, they came off like 2 queens. Are they really that way, or are they like regular guys when you get them off stage, or what?
They are totally regular guys. They were both married to gorgeous women, and they both Graham Russell was the tall one. He was a real artsy kind of guy. And Russell Hitchcock used to be a rock drummer, and he was just a regular, he'd tell you to go fuck off as quick as anything. He was just a regular street guy. They were, like I said, people's perception is not exactly what those guys were about. And, that was another tour. They treated me great, they paid me great, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, we'd hang out and party, and, they were right in there with us, just hanging out, having fun.
Sure. Well, Ken, you worked with the Bangles. At what point did you work with the Bangles?
That was in 1989. Their record "Everything" came out. That was the record after "Walk Like an Egyptian."
Sure.
I was Michael Steele's bass tech, and I was also. They had a keyboard player that was kind of off stage. I took care of him as well, and it was great. I don't know if you guys knew or if a lot of people know, but Mickey, the bass player, was a real metalhead, and she was easy to hang out with because we were listening to the same stuff. She was actually. That year, she was dating one of the guitar players in that band, Kix. And, I think his name was Ronnie. He used to come out all the time. So it was a good experience. I was with them about 3-4 months. We did a lot of colleges.
I gotta be honest, Ken. Nobody here even knows that there's anybody in that band except for Susanna Hoffs.
Yeah, she's the one they all looked at. I got you there.
Well, you obviously got to work with Susanna. I mean, what was your impression working for the Bangles and being around Susanna? I mean, I went to see them twice during their heyday. I saw them at the Pacific Amphitheater in L.A., and they were. I think the Untouchables were opening up for them. I don't know if you were on that tour or not.
No, I don't think so.
But she used to lay down on the stage. She used to wear her short skirts and stuff, and she used to lay down on the stage and kick her legs up and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
and she was just a little hottie. So what was your impression as someone who just was like one of the road crew working around somebody who was for all intents and purposes, a sex symbol at that time?
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I don't think I've really mentioned this before. Well, firstly, I was lucky. I came in as a friend because the drummer was married to a sound guy I had toured with, and he brought me in, so I already knew Debbie. It made things easier.
Now, wait before you go, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Did they lived up in Wrightwood, California, right?
Debbie lived in Woodland Hills, and I don't know where the other three lived.
Sure.
I'm not real sure.
Because I would see now this guy. He had kind of like dark hair, right?
Steve Botting was the sound guy, and long dark curly hair.
Yeah. I used to see her and him at this mall. I used to live in Southern California, and I used to see them together at the Victor Valley Mall together.
Oh, that's cool. They're still together. They've got healthy, wonderful kids, and I just talked to Steve about a week ago.
I never bothered her, but I would see them at the mall together, and I would never, I never would. Oh my God, I would never do that. I would just know who she was, and she would just kind of walk by, and she knew people knew who she was, and she would just kind of like nod at them, like, yeah, hi, how are you? Without people.
Deb's a real sweetheart. All four of them really were.
Sure. So I would see them pretty frequently, actually. So it was, but I never hassled them. Oh, can I get your autograph? Anything like that. But I would see them pretty frequently because they used to shop around where I lived.
Stop stroking your dick. And
stop it already. Well, but anyway, regardless of that. So you're working with them, and so you more or less, how did you? What was your impression of Susanna and the rest of the girls?
You know what? They were all sweethearts. They, would come in sometimes early. If they didn't have a lot of press, they'd hang out before sound check. They were cool, and honestly, I liked them all. They were all wonderful people. Back then, I kind of had a thing for Mickey, so I was working for the right person. Nothing ever happened, so I wasn't really looking at Susanna all that much because Mickey was just cool. She was just an awesome person to hang out with. She liked her, some songs I'd crank her bass like metal almost, and she'd kind of dig it. She had this one song she wrote with Vinnie Vincent called "Watching the Sky," which was real heavy, and she'd come out on one of the upper risers, and I used to adjust her amp levels for every song, and I liked it a little loud on that song, and she started playing, and she just looked over at me, and I saw her mouth. Holy shit. It was that loud, and we just left it. It was awesome.
Sure. Well, Ken, I'm going to give you a couple of names. Let me know if you know who they are, and maybe give me an impression of your thoughts. Mark Hogue.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't think I know him. Who is he?
Well, he was sort of the road chief. What do you call the guy who's the head of the crew?
Production manager.
The production manager. Well, he worked with like Poison and Chicago and different people like that.
Okay. That's why I know the name. Okay. I've never worked with him.
Jack Carson.
No, I'm throwing the blank on that one.
Don't know him either. Okay. Just a couple people that were always ahead of the crew. Jack Carson is Vince Neil's personal manager, I guess, or
okay.
What his personal stage manager?
Oh, I've never heard of that before, but okay.
Whatever, total dick. But
oh, okay, I'll go with that. I don't know the guy, so yeah.
How about Waldo?
No, I don't know. Who's Waldo?
Chris, what was the guy's name he worked with? Janie Lane.
They called him Waldo.
Well, they called him Waldo. I don't know his whole name though.
He was more like Janie's personal assistant though than a road crew guy.
But he did do management on the road though. He worked with Jack.
Wait a second. In '97, Alice had Warrant, Slaughter, and Dokken open up, and that name Waldo is starting to sound familiar. But the Warrant guys had a couple of different techs, and I'm not really sure. But I think I might have.
Basically, were you on that tour?
The 97 one with I did that tour.
So you played at the Nautica stage in Cleveland when it was a big downpour and lightning
with
and
the big lightning, and the promoter they didn't want to do the show, and the promoter said, "Listen, we need to get 3 songs out of each support act."
That's exactly right.
And Alice has to do this many. So the Alice Cooper road crew went to each dressing room and told them they were playing 3 songs, and they weren't very happy about it, but we helped them get out there, and they went and they played their however many songs they had to do. Yeah, lightning was hitting Transformers like you could see it from the stage.
Sure, I was there.
Oh, that was a good show, though.
But then everybody went over to the Odeon and did a jam session. Did you go over there?
No, because our shit got wet, and we had to load the truck. I mean, I'm loading wet gear, trying to dry it off as I'm putting it in cases. So, with gigs like that are hard, because if it's a long run to the next one, you've got all that water percolating on your guitars and stuff, and it's just hell.
Sure.
So no, we were hustling trying to get it, and that was another all hands on deck. I mean, I was loading out sound gear and helping with lights. Just we should have gone away because of the lightning, but we were more concerned with getting the shit to the next gig, and we're the road crew. We're invulnerable apparently to lightning, so that's
sure.
all good.
Well, Ken, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. The new book is called We Are the Road Crew, and I could talk to you all night. I mean, I'm sure you got stories for days, and just for the fact that you've had the experiences of working with so many different people, and from the hard rock to just kind of soft, easy listening, what I would call Air Supply anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, regardless, your experience and your knowledge and your opportunities have been very vast over the last 30 plus years.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on, guys, and I'll be checking out your show. So if you ever want me on again, just you know where I am. Sure.
Well, definitely, because you got some good stories, and I know we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, but if you want to read a good story, you can go over to Amazon and pick up his book, We Are the Road Crew. Where else can they get it?
Also available on Kindle and on iTunes.
Excellent. And do you have a website, Ken?
Not for that, no. You can just hit my Amazon page, and there's all my stuff is on there.
Excellent. Well, Chris, you got anything else?
No, just Ken, come back and tell more stories, dude. Seriously, this is fun.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole half hour just on the unplugged recording, that whole show we did. So, yeah, just you guys have my email. Just shoot me an email if you guys have an empty spot you need to fill. I'd be glad to come back.
Sure.
All right, great.
Well, we'd love it because I got a million questions to ask, but I can't keep you going here all night.
No, that's fine. I'm in this for whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring you back like once a month or something like that, and just have you check in and maybe throw a
featured guest.
couple of nuggets out there to us, and tell if you have like a good story maybe that didn't make the book or something that.
No, that'd be fine, man. Just let me know. You guys have my info. Just shoot me an email or give me a shout, text, whatever, and I'd be glad to come on. There's lots of stories in there. So,
well, Ken, are you still actively involved in being a road crew?
You know what? I left the road because I was going to be a good husband and have kids, and that all did not work out. But, yeah, there's the story.
Hey, Ken, I thought about leaving the classic metal show to be a good husband and raise some kids, but you know what I said to that? Fuck that. The classic metal show makes a better lover than any woman I've ever known.
Oh, wait a minute! I did leave the classic.
Hey, guess where you came back to?
Yeah, and I came back without a wife too. So,
but anyway, I have a regular job now. I do short movies. I'm trying to start two careers between writing and short movies. But I have actually. Have you guys ever heard of the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise?
Yeah, sure.
I am actually going to be a stage manager on that this January, so I'm going to start doing some shows again and see, what I can do. I'm actually also starting to, I set up a local band last night. I've got a couple bands I'm friends with, so, I was stacking PA last night just to do it, just to be out there, and it was awesome to do it. There's a couple bands locally. One's called Rocks, one's called The Creeps, and, it's my roots, so I'm glad to just go out and, whatever I can do just to do it. And we'll see. I'm hoping to do more of those cruises and see where that leads, So right now it's one day at a time, and, everything's good, so we'll just see where it goes.
Sure. All right, Ken, well, we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us and being open and honest with us. The new book, as I said, is called We Are the Road Crew, and you can pick it up over there at Amazon. And where else, Ken?
Kindle, iTunes, I'm everywhere.
Excellent. All right, so
thank you, guys.
It's a good read, and we'd like to have you back again, Ken. No kidding here.
I'm available anytime. Just let me know, and we'll work it out.
All right. Well, before we let you go, Ken, I'm going to ask you the traditional classic metal show question. We've gotten literally hundreds of answers over the years. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
Lemmy is a badass. Lemmy is a legend, and I mean, the name of the book comes from those guys. I toured with Alice. We did Operation Rock and Roll. It was Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, Metal Church, Dangerous Toys, and Motorhead. And Motorhead went on third, and Alice, most shows, not all, but most, went on fourth. And every time I'd be working on my guitars, Lemmy'd be waiting to go on, and he'd start telling me these awesome stories. You know, he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix, and just the early Motorhead stories. And the guy is just such a regular guy. He's an icon. I love every Motorhead record, and I'm a huge Lemmy fan. I always will be. You know, their song "We Are the Road Crew" is perfect. That's why I decided to use that as the title for my first book. I mean, you know, those guys, there's just something there, you know. And Lemmy is forever. Lemmy is an icon. You know, if you watch the Lemmy documentary, they filmed what he played with Metallica. And when he walks onto Metallica's stage, he owns that stage. He is bigger than life. So, Lemmy, if you're listening, God bless you.
Excellent, Ken. All right, Ken, well, because your book is called We Are the Road Crew, I'm going to close the interview out with that song from Motorhead, just for you.
Cool. Just give me a second so I can turn you guys back on my computer.
Well,
so,
turn it on, goddammit. Turn it on.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would do that cool radio feedback thing, so I figured I'd just kill it while we were talking and then bring it back on. Plus, Lord knows I don't like listening to myself talk, so I tried not to listen to me.
Well, you've been a good guest, Ken. All right. Well,
I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And thanks. I look forward to being on again, and I am open, so you guys can start We Are the Road Crew whenever you're ready.
Excellent. All right. Well, go pick up Ken's new book, We Are the Road Crew, and here it is. It's Motorhead with what, Ken?
We Are the Road Crew.
Exclusively here
on your classic metal show.